You know how sometimes you see a pattern repeat itself over and over again through history? Well, today we're going to dive deep into a really fascinating theological argument. Our source material suggests there's a very specific blueprint for deception that pops up again and again in biblical history and prophecy, a pattern for messing with divine order. And it all starts with this one powerful, kind of cryptic verse from the book of Daniel. He shall intend to change times and law. Now, according to the source, this single line is the key. It's the central clue to a mystery that stretches across thousands of years, from ancient kings right up to our modern traditions. So, the big idea here isn't that this prophecy is just some one-off prediction. Nope. The argument is that it actually describes a method of deception, a playbook, if you will. It's a spirit of lawlessness that operates by twisting and changing divinely appointed structures. It's a pattern, and once you see it, you can start to trace it. So where do we see this playbook for the first time? Well, our source material points us way back to an ancient Israelite king you may have heard of, a guy named Jeroboam. He's presented as the OG, the one who created the original historical blueprint for this very specific kind of deception.
It's a fair question, right? I mean, why would a king go out of his way to mess with sacred traditions? For Jeroboam, it all came down to one thing: power. See, he was terrified that his people would travel back to Jerusalem for the holy feasts, reconnect with the southern kingdom, and kick him off the throne. So his solution? Create a counterfeit religious system to keep them home and, more importantly, keep them loyal to him.
And this is where you can see the deception in plain sight. God had appointed a huge feast in the 7th month. What does Jeroboam do? He moves it to the 8th month, a month he literally just made up. God established a priesthood from the tribe of Levi. Jeroboam, he just appointed priests from any old tribe he wanted. He literally changed the time and the law. See the pattern? So let's be really clear here. This wasn't just some minor tweak. It was a calculated, strategic move. He created a system that looked and felt kind of similar on the surface, but was completely hollow and false at its core. The whole point was to divert worship away from God and give him total control over the entire narrative. So you might be thinking, okay, that was an ancient king thousands of years ago. What does that have to do with today? Well, the source material argues that this pattern never really went away. In fact, it suggests we can see the exact same pattern, altering times and laws, in the traditional understanding of the Good Friday and Easter timeline. Now, before we get into the tradition, we have to establish the benchmark, and that standard comes from Jesus himself. According to the Gospels, he gave one very specific sign to prove who he was. This one right here. He said he would be in the tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. Our source really hammers this home as the non-negotiable prophetic timeline. Okay, so let's walk through the timeline that most of us are probably familiar with. The story goes, Jesus is crucified on a Friday afternoon. He's in the tomb all day Saturday, and then he rises early on Sunday morning. This is the timeline at the heart of the Good Friday tradition. And right here, this is where the source says the math just doesn't add up. If you start the clock on Friday afternoon and stop it on Sunday morning, what do you get? Well, you get Friday night and Saturday night, that's 2 nights, and you get 1 full day Saturday. That's 1 day and 2 nights. But the prophecy, the only sign given, was for 3 days and 3 nights. And this is where the source says, wait a minute, we've seen this playbook before. First, the appointed time of the resurrection sign gets altered. And second, the argument is that the law is overlooked. The source points to the legal role of John the Baptist, a priest from the line of Levi, officially appointing Jesus as the Lamb of God. This fulfilled a critical part of the law that, according to the source, the traditional timeline kind of ignores. It's a change to both the time and the law, eerily similar to Jeroboam's sin, right? So you can see how the argument is building. We've seen the pattern with an ancient king, and then again in a modern tradition. But what if this is all pointing to something way, way bigger? According to our source, this pattern doesn't stop here. It's building to a truly cosmic conclusion. And here it is. This is the most provocative claim in the whole argument. The source theorizes that the final, ultimate version of this deception, this changing of times and laws, will be an attempt by Satan to completely erase the memory of Christ's 1,000-year reign on earth, to make it seem like it never happened. So what on earth does that mean? Well, the idea comes from the book of Revelation. After Christ's true 1,000-year reign, Satan is released for what's called a little season. And in this view, his ultimate deception is to trick the nations into believing that the kingdom they just lived through was a myth or just symbolic, and that the real kingdom is still coming in the future. Essentially, he flips the script on our understanding of prophecy by taking a past reality and convincing everyone it's still in the future.
Just think about the fallout from something like that. The implications would be absolutely massive. First, Christ's historic reign gets memory hold. Second, you create this false hope, getting everyone to wait for a kingdom that's already come and gone. That might just open the door for a false Messiah. And third, it would create total theological confusion, with people trying to apply already fulfilled prophecies to the future.
Okay, so after all that, an ancient king, a timeline debate, and a wild end times theory, what's the point? Why should any of this matter to us today? Well, according to the source, it all boils down to a really fundamental choice. Are we going to follow God's precisely appointed times and laws, or are we going to follow the convenient traditions and systems that were created by man?
And this chart really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The whole argument in one simple visual. You see the exact same pattern of changing divine appointments, but on 3 totally different scales. You've got Jeroboam's political power grab, the traditional timelines math problem, and then this proposed cosmic deception over the millennial kingdom. It's the same method every single time, just with higher and higher stakes.
So what's the bottom line here? The source's warning is pretty direct. It's saying that prophetic details matter, that truth isn't determined by how convenient a tradition is or how long it's been around. The argument is that following this pattern of changing times and laws, even if you don't realize it, puts you at risk of embracing a counterfeit. And the responsibility falls on believers to really dig in and figure out the difference between what's been fulfilled and what's still to come. And we'll leave it with this final, really provocative thought from the source. It frames the entire issue in the strongest possible terms, that messing with God's appointed times and laws isn't just a simple theological debate. It's an attempt to alter the very nature and the finished work of the Messiah himself. A pretty powerful idea to think about.